Welcome to our Doctor Music panel, hosted in partnership with the British Association of Performing Arts Medicine, also known as BAPAM. The charity offers a huge range of well-being and health services for people working in the performing arts in the UK, as well as training for healthcare professionals. Our mentor from BAPAM is taking appointments during the online event today and tomorrow, so if you have any health questions or concerns, he can direct you to where to get support. I'm delighted to introduce this Doctor Music panel, which came about when I interviewed Leyden earlier this year and discovered that she was both a professional musician and a doctor. Although medicine and music have an association going back to ancient times, in the modern world they usually converge where artists or festival goers need treatment. Today we're going to look at what it's like to combine a career as a doctor with a parallel role in music and how the two can complement each other. So I'm going to introduce the panelists, or bring the panelists in one by one to introduce themselves. And first I'd like to welcome Leyden.
Hello. So hi Olaf, thanks for having me. And
it's a pleasure.
I'm Leyden, and I'm a singer-songwriter, but I also work as, at the moment, a locum kind of junior doctor at the moment. And that's me.
You're welcome. So next up is Darren Yeats, who's the closest to me because his shop's just down the road. Welcome, Darren.
Hi, Olaf. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Darren Yeats. I opened a record shop, VoxBox, around the corner from Olaf back in 2011. Before that, I entered medical school in the year 2000, and so it's 20 years ago now. I work as a locum consultant up in Aberdeen at the moment, and I run the shop from afar. I've got 2 employees, 2 kids. I started a record label as well a few years after opening the shop, and it's a labour of love. It takes up a lot of time, that's for sure.
And actually, Anna, you studied in Aberdeen, didn't you?
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice city. I'm from up that way as well. I'm from Peterhead, so it's a bit odd working in among patients that know your family and things like that. So you have to be on best behaviour if you're living and working in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I'd like to bring in Elias, aka DJ Sondera, who is joining us all the way from Mexico City. So welcome, Elias. You obviously started out in music before being a doctor, but you come from a medical family. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, hello everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm from Mexico City. I was born here, and I've been DJing basically all my life. I've been a music collector since I was a kid. The music and the sound production always have been a very important part of my life. And basically, I went to medical school as well. I really like medicine. I'm a general practitioner, and I also I made a master in health administration, and I work as a GP, and also I do some administration work in an institution, and also I'm still working as a DJ as well. So I combined these 2 different areas, and basically even with the pandemic, I can still working in both areas. Thank you.
So, Elias, also worth mentioning that you have a herbal medicine, I guess, dispensary, and that you also have a radio show, but not mainly music radio show, but a radio show that that's all about health matters. So it's you're a man of diverse talents, and I guess we should start this really. I mean, you've already touched on it, but you are relatively, by UK standards at least, relatively late to study medicine. What did you do before then, and at which point did you decide you like to have a career as a doctor as well?
The thing is, when I finished high school, I was DJing all the time. But when I finished high school, I went to study human nutrition. So at that time, I was like worried about other things. So I stopped the studies, and I went to work and traveling. I traveled in a few parts of the world. And then I went to live to Australia for 3 years, and I did a bachelor in recording arts. I was in Perth, Western Australia for 3 years. But then I realized that getting back to nutrition, I felt that I wanted to do something more, and to work in the health area. So I decided that for me the best option was to go to medical school to study medicine, because for me it was like more. It was more important to have a medical background, and later on maybe I can do a master in nutrition. So that's why I decided to go to medical school. So yeah.
And while you were studying, were you able to earn money as a DJ as well? So that went towards your costs as a student.
Yeah, exactly. I obviously I have a loan, and but I at that time when I was DJing full time, I was working from Monday to Monday, and also doing events and all that. But basically, when I started studying medicine, it's very, very hard, and you need to work the whole day studying. And since from very early in the morning until late. So at that time, I was working just as a part-time DJ on Saturday, and Saturday, sometimes Friday, and basically that's it. I was like combining, actually I got married when I was ending my studies as in the medical university faculty.
And Anna, you come from an illustrious family of musicians, so I imagine that's probably answers the question in the sense that you'd have been exposed to music from an early age, and you were also in a band, Gogolf, who support the Killers and Bastille. Did you do all this before you actually took up your place at medical school in Aberdeen?
I did. So, as you said, both my parents are singers and musicians. So, they mainly do traditional Irish singing and play a bit of guitar and piano and things like that. And they've always played music throughout their lives, both a mix of professionally and part-time with other careers as well. So I guess from seeing them from an early age, being able to play music and work full-time jobs and things, I kind of never really questioned not being able to do both, which is really good actually. And I kind of was brought up around unaccompanied traditional Irish singing, and was at that point dragged along to full weekends of unaccompanied singing and things. So over the years I've grown to love all of that, and have performed with mom and dad. They're called Jane Cassidy and Morris Leyden, and or they're retired from their full-time jobs now, but still bringing out new music and things, which is great. But yeah, so I performed with them from I was probably like mid-teens, early teens, and would be playing piano and harmonizing and things with them. And Go Wolf, that was, I started, they were kind of an electro pop band, and I played synth and backing vocals with them. And that was kind of in my last couple of years of school. So kind of when I was deciding what I wanted to do. And in the end, I didn't think I was going to get an offer for medicine. I ended up getting in on the waiting list. So I only found out 2 weeks before I got into uni that I actually got in. So I thought I was going to have a gap year and continue to play in the band and things. But it all kind of very suddenly happened that I packed my bags and left. And so that was quite an emotional end to leaving the band. But I managed to come back during my first year of uni. The next girl, Hannah McPhilmy, that joined the band afterwards, wasn't available for a couple of the gigs. So that was luckily for me when we got to play at T Vital in Bangor. I think that was back in 2014 when we did the big gig of supporting Bastille and the Killers. So that was a good one to do.
So had you thought you were going to be? Had you thought you were going to be a musician, full-time musician, following the family tradition, or did you? Did you think I want to be a doctor and I'll keep the music as a sideline?
I mean, I got asked this even in like my uni interview and things. They love that. But I don't think I was ever planning on doing music full time. I mean, never say never, I might in future, but I think maybe just because, well, Mum was a full-time musician for about 10 years or so, and then developed other things as well. So I think I was a bit nerdy in school, so enjoyed the whole school side of things, so was keen to do something kind of academic as well. And as I say, I never kind of questioned that I couldn't do both, just from seeing Mum and Dad. So yeah.
And Darren, I mean, you presumably would have been, studying medicine long. Well, you weren't presumably. You were studying medicine long and working as a doctor long before you opened the record shop. But did you have any involvement in music prior to that? I mean, were you promoting gigs or playing music even?
No, nothing at all. I'd really just got into records while at university. It was the cheapest way to buy music or access music legally. And I preferred the kind of Mojo top 100 albums. And through friends and things, I just got into older music. And that led to kind of record fairs and picking up vinyl there. And it just seemed it's a more pleasant way of listening to music as well. Had lots of diverse friends with a diverse interest in music as well back then. I mean, my kind of group of friends was into baggy Manchester music, and some were into Public Enemy and hip hop or early rap music from the 1990s. And from my parents' side of things, it's country music, Johnny Cash from my dad, and some awful stuff as well from my parents. Some Elvis and rock and roll and things like that. So, but it was mainly old music. And it's only since opening the shop that I found that there was good music being made locally or at all in the world. I kind of had the attitude that the best music will rise to the top over time. And so I was always looking for the older, the cream of the older music that stood the test of time rather than, and plus it was cheaper. So I was, I suppose, a tight-fisted or a skint student, to be honest. It was about a second year or so at university that I picked up a record player and started picking up Bowie albums and things like that, and just buying every single from the 1960s that was going cheap in a local record shop. And I did that for years and ended up with a load of rubbish, but with some real gems as well in amongst that. So I've always just loved the hunt, and just when you find something that makes your heart go, oh yeah, it just makes you you feel alive, I suppose, when you find a cracking tune.
It's worth saying as well that the people were predicting, just when you opened the shop, people were predicting the demise of record shops, and you seem to hit that new found wave in the popularity of vinyl just at the right time. So I remember going into the shop and there were some neatly stacked shelves, and it was all, it was quite a lot of space in there, surplus space going in 2 or 3 years later, and you couldn't move for vinyl. And, it has also, I think, in Edinburgh, and, throughout Scotland, really established a reputation for that, and the events that you do around Record Store Day as well. So, I mean, in the early days, you're working as a doctor, but at the same time, you've got this shop. You've launched this shop. How did you balance the two?
I was working part time. I think that's the answer. I mean, because medicine sucks you in. It's a relatively well paid job, and if you're going through training, the hours can be fairly brutal between nights and on calls and weekends. And things, so it's difficult to take time out of training. The way the system is structured, it's very difficult to work part time, and it's very difficult to pursue another interest. Or as it was, I was out of training. I didn't mind. I was quite happy to work part time in the record shop and part time in a hospital-based complex care. In geriatric medicine at the Astley Hospital in Edinburgh. So it was a mix of rehab and end-of-life care for the frail elderly. And eventually my business partner left. I took on an employee, and eventually I did go back into, well, not quite training, but a full-time role. And so the shop's in effect run by two students who are in bands themselves. At the moment, and I still keep a hand, and I price collections that come in, and I order the new vinyl that comes into the shop with recommendations from them as well. But it's impossible. Well, I think it would be fairly difficult to go through a standard training program and put in all the work that's needed to be a performer or to run a music-related business, because it's hard to make money in the music industry. It is, I suppose everyone knows. And to have the best shot at making a name for yourself or being able to be self-sufficient as a musician, it really is a hard work and probably a full-time job, or we need a team approach. So I was lucky enough that I didn't care about money. It's not that I was wealthy or anything. I just I managed to get by on part-time wages, and I enjoyed the record shop work a lot more than the clinical work that I'd done for the previous 10 years. I've had great experience working as a doctor, and the training period was fine, but it wasn't why I was alive, I suppose. I felt a bit robbed after doing, say 8 months of medical admissions, where you're working on average 56 hours a week or so. It takes its toll. And so at the end of it, you might have a decent amount of money, but your soul is missing a big chunk. And so the record shop for me filled that gap. And I met so many.
Point, actually, because I think that this idea of, last year we had a panel called Martial Artists, and we interviewed musicians the panel was about musicians who also practice martial arts, and it was really interesting how those two sides complemented each other. And I was going to ask about this, and it's good that you bring it up. It's the idea of, if you're working in a hospital or you're working as a doctor, what role the music side plays in your life, and is there an element of that that's quite cathartic, where you've got you're doing some really heavy shifts in hospitals, or especially in the past 18 months, obviously with COVID, where there's all the additional pressure. how does the shop help you personally? What kind of a yang does it provide for your medical yin?
It's hard to put a finger on, really. During COVID, I appreciate quiet time, and in the years I spent working in the shop, I actually it's changed the way that I listen to music. With music on all day, working in the shop, I actually appreciate quiet time a lot more, and I'm very much more selective about what I play. I really make a point of sitting down and say I'm going to listen to Brian Jones' Massacre or something like that, and I'm going to give it a decent listen rather than just have background music on. During COVID, I'd like to say that sometimes you get psyched up for a night shift and you might play some AC/DC or something like that, or the Stooges, just to get your adrenaline up. I mean, working in acute medicine for a long time, I found that it's hard to get a buzz. You can have a cardiac arrest bleep go off and your heart might not even jump. So just to be able to get psyched up, I found some good tunes are important, are useful for that. On the other side, being with lots of sadness around, people talk about the cathartic nature of music. It can get you over hard times, but I didn't feel I needed any kind of mourning songs, I suppose. And with COVID, I mean, I was working in COVID wards. I was working as a COVID consultant this year actually. And yeah, we've seen some horrible things, but it's difficult to say how music might have helped with that. Other than I try to ask patients. Well, I look after frail elderly patients, and I try and ask them a wee bit about themselves. Not just about occupation, which is part of the medical history. A standard medical history should include that. But I do try to ask them if it's reasonable about the music they danced to when they were young, and what if they enjoyed dancing, if they had nice holidays, and what they would party to. If they've seen the Beatles, did they ever see Frank Sinatra? If they're of that era. And there's one 95-year-old that had COVID. She was in with something else, but she picked up COVID, and I asked her what kind of music she listened to, and she said Rachmaninoff. I thought, that's okay, that's fine. I don't really know this guy. And then she said, and Iron Maiden as well. So I was taken aback, and it was great. It was all of a sudden, it's not just this frail elderly woman who's very ill. It adds a lot more personality, and it gives you something extra to speak about. So you end up learning that she had numerous male children, and she loved them to bits. And then you meet the male children as they're coming in to visit. So it really helps from that point of view. Pre-COVID, I was working in hospital-based complex care, which involves in Edinburgh looking after the frail elderly and some of those with dementia as well, with behavioural difficulties that can't be managed in nursing homes. And there's an initiative called Playlist for Life that was started by Sally Magnuson, the newsreader, after seeing her mum develop dementia. And she found that when music was played, then her mum became much more of her normal self. And she started this charity that invites family members to come up with a playlist to play with a person with dementia to help stimulate old memories and conversation, and to try and bring them back, I suppose, and try and be able to relate to them for a wee while. And so that would be, it's like looking through, we get secondhand records brought in all the time, and it's like that record box from the loft. It's got a whole mix of different albums going through teenage years through the 20s, and then some odd things like Lionel Richie will be in just about every record collection.
I have a Lionel Richie bathrobe that my friend Sven in Hamburg gave to me as a leaving gift. I'm not sure it's the one that he wore on his record sleeve for Renaissance, but my mate Sven did the promotion on that. I still have it, although half the sleeves come off. But anyway, I digress. I think we should come back to that element of the music therapy, because it is a really interesting it's a really interesting area, and there's a lot of things happening in the UK around this. But I want to bring Elias in just now and just ask, what role the music plays for you, and particularly what has it done for you over the past 18 months, because you've got what 50 COVID patients alone at the moment that you're in daily contact with online. And is there a release for you if you're going out in, you know, and DJing in MN Roy or wherever it might be, and you know, does that help you cope with what you see and have to do in your day job?
Basically, it's very difficult because it's very stressful to play right now, because I have to use the mask the whole time. People is very relaxed, but we know that at least here in Mexico, the pandemic and the number of cases is increasing. The authorities they call it that this is the third wave, but basically we are reaching a point as we were in January and February. So the cases are very big. So for me, I can't say that for me it gives me you know, like a time of relaxation if I go to play. I really like the music, and every day, every week, when I have a spare time, I am listening new releases or new music to me. It doesn't matter the style, but for me, maybe it's a new music from artists that I know or artists that I don't know. So I'm always learning about new music to me, and that's a way for me to cope with the pandemic. You know, like getting new music, every time that I can, and the time is possible. I like to listen to music in the car or at home. But actually playing as a DJ, also at the moment I'm not playing in nightclubs. In nightclubs, some of them are open, or they are starting to reopen again. But I totally avoid nightclubs because, you know, it's a closed space, and is you know, like I'm a GP. I am how to say I am in charge of the COVID program where I work. So I think is you know, like you can. You need to give the example, no? To stay
well, you want to avoid the risk and not be the guy jumping up and down without a mask on, and you know, not like your president, for example, or some of our former England's former health secretary, not Scotland's, but I think his indiscretions went a bit further than not wearing a mask. But Anna, enough of our politicians. You are doing open mic nights as a medical student, and I imagine that with all the stress and the intensity of actually what you have to learn as a student, that must have been quite a good opportunity just to decompress and just have something different going on. I mean, how helpful was it for you?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, Darren, as you were saying, medicine just, if you're not careful, can just swallow up your whole life. And I mean, that's fine if for some people want to give the majority of their time to it, which is absolutely fair enough. But for me personally, I always want to have a creative outlet as well. So as a student, I started doing those open mics, and that was when I started playing solo, really. So it was just a really good way to actually meet people outside of the course and things. So I remember in first year, so just the halls that I was in was mostly living with people who weren't studying medicine. And then I always felt really sad at the start because they were who I knew mostly at the start. And then I would have to leave and go up to the hospital campus. And then it took a bit longer to meet people on my course, maybe. And so, I mean, over the years, obviously, I've got to know so many people doing medicine now, and that's great. Some of my best friends are. But I always like having just a mixture of people to hang out with from who enjoy doing different things, and I love having friends who are into music, either whether they just enjoy going to gigs or musicians themselves. So starting to do that and just allowed me to do that really, which is great.
And have you found the music has been a good outlet or a nice distraction over the course of the pandemic? I mean, you released an EP in April, right? So I'm assuming that you must have been planning quite a lot around the release and recording even. How helpful was that? I mean, did it provide a distraction, or was it just, all right, here's another load of stuff I really need to get done when I'm not working at the hospital?
No, for this year, it was definitely, I was so glad to have that. And it just gave me something completely different to be able to think about in the flat and give me kind of homework to do almost, that just was so completely different. And I mean, it was totally stressful at the time because it was, I mean, November, the end of November when I was going in to record. So it was all very touch and go whether it was actually possible. So it took a lot of careful planning as to how to actually do it safely, and did not want my recording to be the center of a breakout or anything like that. And thankfully it wasn't. So yeah, it just took a lot of planning and a bit of stress to kind of figure out how to kind of take on board everyone's worries at that time as well. I mean, no one really knew how to deal with things. So I just tried to make sure everyone felt as comfortable as they could. But so the release was an amazing distraction, and I'm so glad that I've actually been able to bring out something in a year that's been so difficult to do anything much creative at all, really. But in terms of playing music, it's been a funny one. So I always find music a great outlet, and for example, like the single "Breathe" that I released what year are we now? So that was 2020. Yeah, I had written that kind of on a day where, like, in the first couple of years of training, so FY2, it's all can be a bit grim at times, just in terms of how busy and overwhelming and things it is. And that was one of the first few days of that year, and just I ended up writing that song when I just felt so overwhelmed by work and things like that. And sometimes in the days that you're like feeling rubbish like that, and probably the least creative, and like, oh, I don't want to sit and play the piano because I'm definitely not going to write anything. But whenever you sit down, then things can just come out. So have definitely, it's an amazing outlet. But I actually find playing music kind of difficult during the pandemic, just because I think I find it quite an emotional thing, and because not necessarily what I was seeing in work. I think I was able to kind of compartmentalize that, and we were talking about it all the time in work, and that was okay. It was more just the actual personal side of the pandemic, and it's kind of taken a bit of time to actually try and get back into playing music and writing again. So it's a bit of a weird one, actually.
Have you had any experiences like Darren's 95-year-old Iron Maiden fan? Have you had anyone that any patients, or has music allowed you to connect with patients in that kind of way?
I mean, one lady kind of sticks out in my mind, and it was in my first years working as a doctor, and I can't remember what song it was, but it was a similar sort of thing. So elderly lady who kind of had cognitive decline, so would get quite confused and maybe some behavioural issues at times. But without a doubt, if we just put on this song of hers, this favourite song from back when she'd like first met the love of her life and all that sort of thing, and she would just happily listen to it on repeat day after day after day, and she would just be a different person and just completely relaxed and zen and happy, and it was so nice. And I moved off the ward, and one day was passing through and popped into the office, and it turns out she had passed away since I'd moved off the ward. But they've actually got a picture of the singer of, I can't remember who it was, but she's got they've got a picture of him up on the wall, just kind of in memory of her, because it was so nice. So. Yeah.
Elias, have you had any experiences like this with patients? I mean, has music allowed you on occasion to connect with a patient, or even with another colleague?
Basically, I think what for me in my experience, what the thing that connects with patients is the joy for music, because you know like every head is a different world, and every person has different tastes. So mainly all my patients have different styles of music, but the one thing in common is that music in some ways connect people, and I like to listen their experiences about music. And I have patients that they can be bankers, for example, but they sing. They like to sing, and almost professionally. Some of them they sing like mariachi. I don't like mariachi, but what I like to listen to them, to hear them, is about their experiences about singing or playing an instrument or getting music, listening to music. That's it. And with my colleagues, is I feel proud to help them during the pandemic, because some DJs that they work as a full-time DJ. They don't have any other work or job or anything. The pandemic for them was like really tough, because here in Mexico we didn't have a support from the government. So when we had the government shut down everything. Imagine you have to pay the rent, the bills, everything. So, and some of them, also when in early this year, probably March, some places they start like getting people out. But some colleagues, some DJs, they got sick with COVID because they had to go out and to get the job done. So. A few of them, they ask me for prescription medicine. So I give them the whole consultation as my patient. So and the good thing, and also they receive help for their spouse or girlfriend that also they were infected by SARS-CoV-2. And the good thing for me is that they are fine, and I could help them.
It's worth saying that this in Mexico there is a state health system, but it's for state workers, so it's not like the NHS here. So basically, Elias, you're treating them for free, whereas other doctors would have charged for that over there. And I mean, it's interesting that you're talking about your DJ colleagues, because I was just thinking, Darren touched on this earlier with being, back in the area where he grew up and meeting family, friends. I mean, it's worth saying that for a while, Elias was the booker for a club / bar owned by English guys, and he had all sorts from Blur to Grammy-winning band Zoe to the Strokes coming in there and hanging out when he was booking the DJs and the bands and stuff. So this was a very well-known night spot. Do you ever have situations where someone calls you or you're treating someone and they recognize you from your days at El Colmillo or from DJ nights or from your DJ life?
Yeah, like a few people that they remind me, like, oh, you were playing at the Colmillo, and like that gave me a little bit of connection with these people, and we have a good relationship as doctor and patient, because I don't know, like we talk about that time, and they felt like with more confidence to come and talk about their health issues and problems. And but just a few people, they recognized me when I was there. Also, people that I actually I in the places where recently I played, so some of them, they recommend me. For example, I don't know, like the bar manager or waiters or people from the staff of the place. Sometimes they come with me because someone else they recommend me for a recommendation. They come for me sometimes for recommendation, and they recognize me. You are playing in this place, or you're playing in that place. So it's a good thing.
So you're getting recommended as a doctor as well as a DJ.
Yes.
Right. I mean, Anna, do you have you had any situations where as a doctor you've been recognized as a musician, or indeed as a musician, where people might come up to you knowing you're a doctor and start asking you about sort of afflictions just when you're tuning up or after your set?
No, thankfully not on either count. I've managed to keep things nice and secret up until now in both things. So this is outing me, really. So no, thankfully not.
Well, it might happen after this then. And I mean, have you in your music life ever been in a situation where your medical knowledge has come into it? I mean, have you ever been playing a gig, Anna, where someone sort of keeled over, or you've had bar staff like having some unfortunate accident, or you're even a member of the audience taking ill?
I wish I had some really interesting story where that had happened, but not so far. But early days, I mean, I feel there's every possibility that could happen, but no, not as yet, don't think.
What about you, Darren? Has there ever been an incident with your shop, or indeed even with musicians or people that you interact with on the shop level or the label level, where your medical expertise has come into play?
Thankfully, not too often. There's a musician who has seborrheic dermatitis that was sorted out by me just through a recommendation to take a vitamin supplement. Actually, we had a guy have a cardiac arrest outside the shop, and as you know, fashionable Stockbridge. I didn't have to do anything. There was an anaesthetist walking past, and CPR had already started by a GP that was walking past as well, and. There's a trained nurse, a trained A&E nurse as well. So, look,
this is a small street. I wonder if the anaesthetist was one of my neighbours, because I think she's the head anaesthetist at the Western General. So was it a woman?
I can't recall. It was a long time ago, thankfully. And he was whisked off to the Royal. A long time ago. But yeah, luckily enough, there was someone hurt their knee one record store day run across the road. But yeah, luckily enough, I'm fairly happy to keep the two separate, and anonymity has a great value. I think
you're outing yourself here as well as Anna. I think that Elias, have you ever had to use your medical knowledge while you're doing a DJ set, or put on a particularly long record while you go and attend to someone?
Basically, only once a person had an accident. I was playing in a bar, and like we have stairways. It is a second floor bar, and the DJ, there is a DJ booth in the main floor, in the ground floor, and other in the first floor. I was playing on the ground floor, just opposite the stairway. So a person fell down and he couldn't move. So the manager and we went, and the manager he knew that I'm a GP. So basically I saw that he had his ankle was broken, and we call an ambulance, and the paramedics they came, and they took the patient to the hospital. But that's it. Nothing more. Nothing. I didn't have any stroke or something more serious to help while I was playing. Yeah. And
I mean, I've gone out and partied in Mexico City, so it's, I have a long history of going out there, and it's comparable to what you would see in Scotland, or what goes on in Scotland. I once had dinner with the Scorpions, and they said the singer said the most insane audiences he'd encountered were in Scotland and in Mexico, and I think that kind of that translates into the kind of nightlife as well. I mean, you as a doctor, when you're witnessing those kind of scenes in the places you're DJing, what's it like? I mean, do you want to go and say to folk, look, you need to calm down, or please drink some more water, old chap, or do you just kind of get stuck into your records and ignore all the carnage going on round about?
Basically, I think you must in those situations. Basically, you must keep things separately. If it's in your hands to help someone, do it. But if not, so like I work a lot of time in the nightlife, and coping with people that is drinking heavy drinkers and people that are using drugs is very difficult. So I think it's better to keep things separately, and I am going there to work as a DJ. So if I can help, I can do it. But I don't put myself on a risk of with trying to help people that probably they don't want, or we can call an ambulance or another professionals to help them, because I am at that time, I am working differently.
So they probably don't want to be told off at 4 a.m. by the DJ. I can understand that. I mean, Anna, the folk world, quite often I think people regard the folk world as quite genteel, and but having seen some folk musicians in Scotland at least on nights out, I mean they put the average raver to shame, it has to be said. I mean, have you encountered that side of the folk world, or is it, what's it like? I mean, do you find that there's a pressure on you as a more traditional musician to be keeping up with the drinking or anything else that goes on in that world?
So I think probably just like with any, well, I don't know, maybe not with any music type, I mean, anyone that I've come across, I mean, everyone just does their own thing. And I mean, I've never felt pressured to like drink more, keep up with anything, or if anything, people would, because I'm Irish, think that I could drink more. But I think, no, I mean, there is that side of it where people go out and have a bit of a mental time, but equally, there's a friendliness about it as well, and that like no one's gonna hopefully feel ever pressured to do more than that. And I would agree in terms of what Elias was saying about just, I think I would never give out like lifestyle advice about drinking or anything like that on a night out. I don't think that would be taken very well.
And Darren, have you know, I mean, I guess you run a shop, so you're not going to see people in the worst states unless it's like your, you know, a record store day afternoon, in which case I might be one of the ones, you know. So it's you know, but have you found yourself in that situation, or is it something that just doesn't really, the two worlds are kind of pretty much apart in that regard?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't preach to anyone. No, I've had many lovely nights out with hard drinking record labels in Edinburgh, and I'm quite happy to keep the weekend separate from the day job. I think as long as you're fine during the week, you can enjoy yourself and cut loose in the weekend.
And I mean, one of the things that we touched upon earlier was any colleagues that you've got, medical colleagues that are also musicians or work in music at all. I mean, Elias, I think you said you had a colleague you'd met a Mexican doctor that was a metal fan.
Yeah, no, he's a heavy metal player. He has a specialty in pulmonary medicine. So you know, like he's working in the intensive care unit as a COVID, but he plays the guitar really, really well, and he loves, you know, all the metal music. I have another friend that he works as a researcher in Pfizer here in Mexico, and he's a very good also guitar player. He likes, like, you know, like rock, like classic rock, you know, like style, like Rolling Stones, Beatles, the Kings, all that, and but also like he likes like Latin music, like from Brazil, Mexico. Also, I met a neurologist. He has a specialty in neurology, and he also is a DJ. And there are a few people that colleagues that they like music, and some of them they are doing very well, both jobs.
And Anna, have you encountered just any other people in the medical world that are also professional musicians?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky in the first few months of working when I was trying to, because I'd always played solo and I really wanted to build up a band, and ideally not with medics because they're working all the time. But I did meet very early on one other medic called Adi, who is at the same level as me, and he's a drummer. And so in the band that eventually kind of built up, he was part of that, which was class. So that was good. And then, other musicians who are kind of in the medical area. So I work with a nurse on general surgery who's a fantastic traditional fiddle player. I know a couple of dentists who are also work part-time as dentists and are in a band together, and other kind of, I think, gone into GP training and are professional singers and pipers and things like that. So it's absolutely possible, and there's lots of it around, which is great.
Darren, have you got any colleagues that you're aware of that are working in music as well, or have got a sort of sideline in music?
No, sadly no. I know of a psychiatric nurse that is in the band Z Penguin, but nobody that I know personally.
Someone that came to the first Wide Days in 2010, who is a consultant psychiatrist. I actually invited her on the panel, but I never heard anything back. But she's in a Blondie tribute band and a kind of I guess like a sort of beat pop combo as well. So maybe if we have another event where we can bring you all together in person, then we can invite her along. But I think unfortunately we have to wrap up the conversation. I think that you touched upon the music therapy, Darren. We'll put something up linking to that, and also there's Nordhoff Robbins who do a lot of music therapy in the UK and actually in other countries as well. So finally, just before I end, it's worth highlighting again that people should go out and check out BAPAM, the British Association of Performing Arts Medicine. We've got .org.uk. You should still have the opportunity to book a consultation with one of their mentors about any health or physical and mental related questions. And finally, I'd really like to thank all three of you for taking part in this fascinating discussion. It's great how sometimes these panels can come about. It's one of the benefits of the online world is that we could bring you all together. That might have been a lot more difficult unless Elias or I'd become a millionaire overnight to fly him over. That's assuming that Mexico wasn't on the red list yet. So thanks to the wonders of technology, we were able to have this conversation, and I guess that is a silver lining for this week. So thanks very much for joining us.